We are kicking off the new year with how to set your goals for 2026 because your girl did not want to get fired. All right. That would look real bad for the career coach on soft skills and progression to get fired because she's not doing her job. Right. But I didn't want to burn out. I couldn't afford to burn out, and I needed to be able to do both. Within my corporate job, what I found was I always thought that if I did more, if I had more of an impact, if I worked with more stakeholders, if I invested more of my time, I would move up faster. But what I found is when I backed off, when I had boundaries, when I had a little more emotional distance from the job, suddenly I was a great leader. I was somebody they could see becoming C-suite one day. I was somebody with growth potential. And I share this because doing less does not mean you have less impact. Corporate life is a game, but no one hands you the rule book. Here on Secrets of the Career Game, we break down the unspoken norms and behind-the-scenes dynamics shaping your career today. I'm Kendall Berg, that career coach, and I guide professionals to grow, advance, and lead with clarity. Each week, we explore the tools, habits, and conversations that build confidence, presence, and long-term momentum. Welcome back to Secrets of the Career Game. Today, we are kicking off the new year with how to set your goals for 2026. I cannot believe that it is already January of a new year, but we are stepping into this with success, with strong identity, and with, you guessed it, progression and promotion. So today we're really going to talk about how do you set yourself up for success as you look ahead to the new year? How do you do this in a way that's going to help your career progress, but also help your life be more fulfilled? And then we're going to talk about how to set yourself up for the next 12 months, what you're going to do to make sure you stay on track. So starting off, as we think about setting your goals for 2026, we're going to focus on career primarily for this episode. So we have a lot of other episodes that are going to be sprinkled throughout where we talk about personal life and those pieces. But primarily for today's conversation, we're talking about your job, how to get promoted, how to get progression, and how to really see the results that you want this year. So step one is you need to understand what your company cares about. What are your company's priorities in 2026? If you have not seen a strategic presentation of what your company is focused on, that is step number one. You need to go, you need to find a copy, you need to ask your boss, ask your boss's boss, ask the leader of your organization. I don't care. I just need you to go get a copy of the strategic goals. Because if your company is focused on AI in 2026 and you don't have an AI goal, we're already failing. If your company is focused on efficiency, most likely related to AI, and you don't have an efficiency goal, we are going to start off January already behind the eight ball. So you need to understand what your company cares about first. A lot of the time we make ourselves really busy and we think about all these things we want to do and all these things we want to achieve, but we're doing a lot of things, but we're not necessarily doing the right things. And as we go into 2026, my goal for you is not only do I want you to see the career progression and growth that you want, I want you to maintain some boundaries. I want you to have a little bit of work-life balance. I don't want you to have to do all the things just to get what you want. I want you to do the right things. And I heard a quote recently, and I've been quoting it a lot. So if you've already heard me say it, I don't know, put it on a bumper sticker. But the quote says that just because something is within your capability doesn't mean it has to be within your capacity. And I think that this is so important because especially high achievers tend to be much more efficient with their time. They tend to deliver a lot more in the same 40 hours than their average counterpart. And the struggle with that is we think, oh, well, because I have an hour, I can knock out this really high priority strategic initiative, even though maybe it's not the most important. And even though I'm already exhausted and I should probably go for a walk instead. And even though instead we fit it in, we make time, we deliver something above and beyond our expectations because we can, because we are capable. And the reality is that instead of doing that, you should be doing a few really, really impactful things. And I've talked about this a little bit, but never this in depth. So come with me for a story time. Okay, guys. I have, for the last 4 years, run that career coach full-time with a full client roster while working my corporate job. And what I found was the busier career coach got, the less time I had
to my corporate job, the less time I had to think about it, to invest in it, to strategize, to deliver more. But as a result of doing less, what I did execute, I had to do really, really, really well, because your girl did not want to get fired. All right. That would look real bad for the career coach on soft skills and progression to get fired because she's not doing her job. Right. But I didn't want to burn out. I couldn't afford to burn out, and I needed to be able to do both. Now in my business, it forced me to be the CEO. It forced me to hire. It forced me to delegate. It forced me to build an organization that can run without me, which has been really, really great. But within my corporate job, what I found was I always thought that if I did more, if I had more of an impact, if I worked with more stakeholders, if I invested more of my time, I would move up faster. But what I found is when I backed off, when I had boundaries, when I had a little more emotional distance from the job, suddenly I was a great leader. I was somebody they could see becoming C-suite one day. I was somebody with growth potential. And I share this because doing less does not mean you have less impact. Right now, I'm not telling you only work 10 hours a week, right? That's not fair to all your counterparts who are there kicking their own butts trying to get a bunch done. But what I am telling you is if you are working on the right things, if you are working on the most impactful things, and if you're still delivering them with high quality, then you don't need to do everything. My favorite quote, my boss is probably sick of it, I say it all the time at work, is I can do anything you want, but I can't do everything. You got to pick. What's the best way for me to use my time? And that's how I want you to go into 2026. I want you, as you are creating your goals, to think, how do I do the most impact? Think of it as if you were CEO of the company. You want to get the most out of your year, but you want to do it with the least amount of time. Does that change your prioritization? Does that change what's important to you? So say you've got your list of strategic company goals back and you're like, okay, cool. I know what we care about. We care about efficiency, AI, revenue, all the normal ones, right? You're ready. You're like, okay. Then you're going to tie your goals to those goals. And if there's anything you had prioritized, anything your boss has asked you to do, anything you've been working on that doesn't match to one of those goals, for now, you're just going to cross it out. Maybe it is still important. Maybe it's a CEO side of desk project. But for now, you're just going to ignore it because it's not relevant and it doesn't tie to making maximum impact with minimal time. Then for all the remaining things that you could work on, you're going to do, so I like to score them impact versus effort. Right? There's a name for it with quadrants, but I can't remember right now, so just roll with it. But you're going to give it an impact of 1 through 10 and an effort of 1 through 10. And you don't want to do anything where the effort is more than the impact or the same. Only where effort is less than impact. That's going to be your top priorities for the year. Now, these don't necessarily have to be super duper duper impactful things, but they might be easy things we can make an impact, deliver quickly, and they're a win. Or it might be something that's an effort level 4, but it's an impact level 9. It's a huge delivery. And you want to start to think about, hey, of these things that are aligned to my corporate strategic goals, which ones of them have a effort level that's less than their impact? Great. Let's focus on those. And then I want you to really kill it, right? This isn't a boundary episode, though it's becoming one rapidly. But I've said before, it's easier to create a boundary than it is to maintain it. It's easier to say, I'm not going to work past 5 than it is to actually not work past 5. And so as you think of going into the new year, I want you to maintain some boundaries. For once. Maybe it's that you stop swoop and saving everybody else's goals that they're not achieving because you don't want it to look bad on you or the team. Maybe it's that you are going to deliver those high impact, low effort items. And then even if it's 3:00, you're going to log off, right? Some of this is dependent on your company culture. I get that. But I want you to really think about what is it that you need to do and what boundaries can you maintain as you deliver them. The second thing is we want to root our goals in our identity and the way that we perceive ourselves. So some of this starts with kind of changing the narrative. Let's assume, for the sake of this episode, that you want to get promoted this year, or you just got promoted at the end of last year because you've been listening to me and you put in all of my tips into practice. Success. You need to have the personal belief and identity that you are the type of person who can operate at the next level. You are the type of person who leads a great team. You are the type of leader who leads fairly and invests in their people, right? Your identity needs to match your goals. And most people do this kind of backwards. They make their goals and then they're like, cool, my identity is somebody who does all that stuff. But I want you to have a grounded identity. Now, I've given so many podcast episodes, especially recently, about how to identify your future self, how to carve out your identity. There's a personal one, right? Like I said at the start of this episode, we're not really diving into the personal today. We're really focused on the career. But you need to believe yourself someone who is capable of maintaining boundaries. Right now, you don't. Right now, you think you're the type of person who does it all, who's a fixer, who helps in case of emergency. You don't see yourself as the type of person who delivers maximum output within their boundary set. That's who you need to be in 2026. You need to set aside the do-it-all mentality because we can't anymore. 26 is the year of enjoying my coffee and resting, you guys, all right? But I want you to start to believe that you are the person who delivers all of this work and does it in a way that doesn't burn them out. And then we're going to create mechanisms to track your progress. So this is where I feel people get off. We put all of these really fancy goals that we thought of into Oracle or Workday or whatever your HR system is. And we say, cool, I'm going to work on all these year. And then we go back to our jobs. And we're like, sayonara, Steve, I will not be doing any of those. I want you to create mechanisms, daily, weekly, monthly systems in place that are going to help you track if you're on progress to your goals. Okay, so what that looks like is for each of your goals, there's likely some that are going to require a habit. Right? Maybe one of those habits is logging off at 5. Maybe one of those habits is sending a weekly recap to your boss of everything you achieved so that it's documented, it's in the system. Maybe it's hosting a weekly team meeting where you're going to discuss what everybody who works for you is working on. Maybe it's a daily stand-up. Identify what habits you need in place, what ceremonies you need in place to support delivering the goals that you've made. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to break down each of your large goals, right? Because the goals you're going to put in a company system, the ones that are tied to the strategic goals of the company, they're high level. They should be high level, high impact. And I'm backing up slightly, but I don't want to forget to say this. At least one of your goals should be self-development related. I want to learn a new skill. I want to get certified in some tool. I want to invest in my soft skills. I want to work with a coach. You need at least one self-development goal in your goals. Okay, now I've said it. So then you're going to take those big pie in the sky goals and objectives that you're trying to achieve this year, and you're going to break them down into monthly milestones. Now, if one of your goals is due in June, you're only going to have monthly milestones through June. Don't be all up in my comments like, Kendall, I don't want a monthly goal. My project's due in February. Fine. But if your goal is due in December, you need a monthly goal. So you're going to create monthly goals that help you get just a little bit closer to delivering that big objective. And then you're going to organize it where you really only give yourself 3 goals in a month. So if you look at it, and given my earlier example, you have a project due in February, you have a project due in June, you have a project due in December, and then you have your self-development goals. So say those are your 4 goals for this year. Another side note, if you have more than 6 goals, you have too many goals. 6 is my ceiling this year. No more than 6 goals. Okay. Anyways, back to my example. So if you have those 4 timelines, in January, you probably have at least 2 monthly milestone goals, one for the February project and one for the June. And then maybe you're working on your personal development. That's your 3 goals for January. In February, you probably have complete the February project, something else for the June project, and then maybe more self-development to wrap up whatever your certification or your coaching is. Right? Then in March, we pull in the project that's due in December. So we have the June project, the December project, the personal development. If you start to do this exercise and you realize you have too many monthly milestones, everything has something every month, and you have 6 ceilinged goals, you're trying to do too much. You're never going to be able to maintain your boundaries. You're not going to be able to deliver maximum impact with minimum output. You need to reevaluate. And maybe that means you start some things later and you say, hey, I'm still going to deliver this, but I'm going to do it in the second half of the year. Or, hey, I'm still going to deliver this, but it can't start till March after that February project is done. This also arms you with the ability to go back to your boss and say, hey, I know we discussed me working on this, and I see why it's so important. I definitely want to contribute to it. My concern is with the workload that I have in January, February, I don't know that I can give it the appropriate amount of attention. Are you comfortable with me picking it up in March? Okay. So you're going to break down those big goals into monthly milestones. You're going to layer those monthly milestones. You're going to cap yourself at 3 monthly objectives per month max. Anything over that, and you're stretching yourself too thin. And then you're going to track your progress to each of those. Now, the corporate world is a funny world. All right. You may get a project in March that nobody saw coming that upsets your entire plan and replaces everything you planned on doing. That's fine. It happens. That's the corporate world. We're not so inflexible as to think that we can't do that. But then we're going to have a really clear conversation with our leadership. Hey, the trade-off for me taking on this fire drill in March is I'm not picking up this other project I was supposed to pick up. It arms you with information to have an educated discussion with your leadership. The second thing that it allows you to do is when you get to your performance review at the end of the year, and let's say that December goal never gets done, Because instead of picking it up in March when you were supposed to, there's this huge fire drill. You pick that up in March, you deliver your project in June, and that March project takes through the end of the year. We never pick up the full year one. Fine. Then at the end of the year, when we write our performance review, we're going to say, hey, this goal that we had originally assigned to ourselves was superseded by solving this other problem and taking on that project, which ended up having about the same runtime. Decision was made in alignment with leadership that this was a higher priority. That is the language in your performance review. There are times, way too often, where I don't achieve all of my goals in the corporate world because, hey, we were going to work on, let's say, dashboard automation, and then AI becomes a thing. We're like, hey, we're not going to invest in dashboards anymore. We're going to invest in AI instead. Cool. It has superseded another goal. And that is okay as long as leadership is aware. Our boss has agreed to it. We've gotten alignment and we're documenting. The mistake happens when something supersedes it and we make the assumption, oh, it's totally fine. My boss knows this is really hard. He knows, we assume he knows that this is going to replace that big December project. He don't know. She's not paying that close attention. She's not tracking it that way. You have to educate, you have to inform, and you have to have that legitimate conversation. Okay, we went off on a little bit of a tangent. There you go. All right, so that's how we're going to set our goals for this year. And then the last layer of this is if you are hoping to get promoted this year, which I hope you are. I hope you all get promoted this year. Everybody who's listening, I'm rooting for you. Okay. If you are looking to get promoted this year, you start that conversation in January, right? Do not wait until your performance review in March and they go, oh, you didn't get promoted, but we gave you a 5. And you're like, cool, I wanted to get promoted. It's too late. Okay. So you're going to start the conversation in Jan if you want a promotion next March, 2027 March. Station starts this Jan for 2027 March, right? If you were expecting a promotion in 2026 March, you should have started this conversation a year ago. Don't know what to tell you, bud, right? So if you're looking to get promoted in the next 18 months, conversation starts in Jan. You're going to say, hey, I feel like I've done a lot of work. Here's my XYZ 2025 recap. As I look ahead, I'd love to get promoted at the end of the year. What is it that you would need to see for me to make that possible? What gaps do you see between my performance at my current level and performing at the next level? Those two questions, what do you need to see from me and what are my gaps, are going to tell you, hopefully, a lot about what needs to get done. Do not go to your boss and just say, hey, I want to get promoted next year. And they go, yeah, that's feasible. We can make that happen. No, that's not enough. We want tactical feedback. What do you need to see from me? What areas of improvement do you need? What are the gaps between me and that next level? If you were already operating at the next level, you'd already be promoted. Don't take, just keep doing what you're doing as an acceptable answer to this question. It's not. Now, if you are a manager and you are going into 2026, if I hear that you told your employee they should just keep doing what they're doing, I'm going to throw something at you. I say this with love. Okay? You need to give real feedback. Even if they're already operating at the next level, say you put your employee up for promotion at the end of last year and it didn't get approved. And you think, hey, they're already operating at that level. They really do just need to keep doing what they're doing. Why didn't it get approved? It didn't get approved because they don't have the advocates at the senior level. It didn't get approved because there weren't any promotions. There wasn't any budget. They didn't get approved because they didn't do a high enough visibility project. All right. For the first and the third, you need to give them that feedback. Hey, you're doing a great job. Everything is on track, but I need you to get more exposure to senior leadership this year if we want your promotion to go through. If it is budget, just know there's a very high chance you're going to lose that individual because if you don't have the budget, somebody else does. So make sure you're giving your employees feedback. Hey, here's what I need to see from you to get promoted. If you are looking for a promotion, you need to ask that and then don't argue. The number of times I have people come to me and they're like, hey, I want to get promoted. I'm like, great, this is what I need to see you do. And then they argue with me about how they're already doing that. And I'm like, cool, you're clearly not. I don't know. You asked what I wanted to see for you to get promoted. And then you argued with me that you're already doing those things. Cool. It is not going to change your boss's mind, even if you already think you're doing them. So what you're going to say instead is, hey, you shared this feedback. You want me to do this. Totally understand that. Can you give me some specific examples? And some of your bosses are going to go, no, I don't really have specific examples. I just kind of want you to get better at talking, right? They're going to give you something super vague. If that's the case, then you can say, hey, so this thing that happened last year when I led this big project and I communicated with all these senior leaders, is that a good example of what you want me to do? Or is there something you would have had me do differently? Push for specifics. All right. Most bosses, they don't know how to give feedback. They don't know how to give you specifics. They don't want to be too tactical and then you do it and then you don't get promoted and then they're to blame, right? There's a lot of reasons for this. but I want you to get them specific, give them examples. And if they still can't give you something real time, then over time, over the next 3 months, I want you to send them, hey, in this upcoming meeting, you said you wanted me to work on my communication. Can you listen carefully to how I talk and maybe give me some feedback after? I've already gone ahead and scheduled 15 minutes for us to discuss it. Put them in a position to give you feedback. Hold them accountable. I know you're thinking, I don't want to. They're my boss. They should do this on their own. They should. They should. But not every boss comes to me for coaching, okay? Not every leader goes, Kendall, I'm finding that I have a really hard time coaching my employees. What should I do? They don't. I wish they did. Make all of your lives much easier. Okay. But in the absence of signing your boss up for coaching with me as a Christmas gift, I need you to put them on the spot and really get specific with them. So hopefully you guys found this helpful and this gave you a good framework for setting your goals. Again, we want to make sure we're tied to the strategic goals of the company. They're based in our identity. We have a mechanism to track progress and success as we move forward. We're effectively managing our capacity and our boundaries. And then we're asking about any promotions that we want at least a year in advance. If you guys liked this, make sure that you've subscribed. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, make sure you tune in next week for another great episode.